Hello, everybody. If I can get your attention, thank you for coming. And welcome to a hastily thrown together but spirited discussion about one of NDN's favorite subjects, immigration reform. We're calling this event today, which is probably, Andres, the 100th event we've done on immigration in the last 3 or 4 years. We're calling it today Immigration Reform, Politics, Public Opinion, and Legislative Prospects. And what we're going to do is talk a little bit about all three. It is our belief that it is more likely than not that we will see significant action on immigration reform this year, early next year, soon, imminently. And we're going to make the case today for why we think that is the case. And joining me, I'm Simon Rosenberg from NDN. Joining me is Andres Ramirez, who's the Vice President of Hispanic Programs here, and who's been leading our charge on immigration in recent years. And I will say for the folks in the room here at NDN, there's also many people watching online. And when we get to the Q&A period, all of you here will be able to ask questions. And those of you online will be able to follow the directions on your screen to also ask questions. It was fun last week. We did an event here on the future of Cuba, and I think we had 8 or 9 questions come in from those watching live, and I promise you we'll get to you. Right? There won't be preference given to those in the room. So what we're going to do today is Andres and I are going to speak for about a half an hour, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. And Andres will go first, I'll go second, and let me just begin by welcoming Andres Ramirez, who's been a great friend, a great colleague, somebody who has worked awfully hard and on many fronts, including putting together our new exciting Latin American policy initiative. But he's here today to talk a little bit about the politics and public opinion of immigration reform. Andres, welcome.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome, everyone, and thank you guys for coming and joining us. As Simon said, immigration is perhaps one of the most important issues that we are focusing on here at NDN, not just because we're interested in it, but because we know it's a crucial issue affecting all Americans, and it needs to be addressed in a practical, intelligent manner so that we can move forward. What I want to do is I want to take some time to walk you through some of the elements of why we're here today, and that includes demography, it includes public opinion, and it includes politics. Yes, politics. I know that's a dirty word in some places, but it is what it is here in Washington, D.C., and it is what makes the wheels turn in a lot of circles here. Today, Hispanics are hip and influential. They haven't always been. I can tell you firsthand, being a Hispanic, that we weren't always as hip and cool as we are now. But now, with what you're about to learn today, and we hear the data and the information that we have today, you have just about every political pundit on the Republican and Democratic side asking themselves, what can Brown do for you? So, we are going to talk about this, and we're going to go over some of the reasons, what's going on. And so to get there, I'm going to go ahead and start talking. But why are these things changing? Why are the views changing? Why are Hispanics cool? What is all this change going on? Well, in fact, America is changing. And so let's see. Where do we point?
Turn it on, Mr. Dan. We have like one of those guys like on the Letterman show, you know, who's in the back. He's got his little ear thing on. Yeah.
On? It's on. And there we go. Everyone see? So let's look at what's happening in America. This is not the America we grew up in, and these changes are only adding to the great tradition that is America, this diversity that we've grown up with, that our forefathers have grown up with, that our grandparents have grown up with. We are seeing these changes continue, and they are leading us to a new America that looks like this. We see these continuous changes not only in demography, but in geography. Growing up in the Southwest, I can tell you how much this information makes me feel happy because back in those days, we fought so hard just to make our friends back in the East make us feel like we were also Americans as well. I'm sure Simon and his wife, who's from the Southwest, see those similar tendencies. But we no longer have to worry about making our friends back East like us. We in the Southwest, we are now the face of America, and that is a comforting feeling for me. Well, did I skip one?
Yeah.
Yes, there you go. Again, demography. Demography is changing America. We're watching the percentage of the Anglo population here in the United States, our white population, drop significantly. And we're heading towards a different America. Minorities now make up more than a third of the population in the United States. Triple what it was just 40 years ago. And we can see this not just by looking at the census numbers that give us this graph, but we can see this by all sorts of things. We can see it by looking around the room. We can look at it by watching the evening newscast today. We can look at it by watching our favorite sports teams, whether it's soccer, baseball, or football, or basketball. We have a diverse America now. You are seeing more minorities play these sports. You are seeing more minorities participate in your newscast. You are seeing more minorities participate in your daily cuisine as you're going out to restaurants and you're buying food. So you don't need the census to show you that America is becoming more diverse. We are witnessing this as we live day to day. But what we're heading to is we're heading towards the United States, in which the United States will be a minority majority by 2050 or earlier, depending on which estimates you look in. And don't be afraid of this. I know many of you folks might see this conversions and go, ah. But what America is realizing is what the rest of the world has already realized, and that's that we live in a world in which Anglo-Europeans no longer dominate the population, and that there are more non-whites inhabiting this earth than there are whites, and that's not a bad thing, and that in fact it has helped reshape the way we live our democracies, the way we interact with each other, and the way we move forward with our technology and our demography. Let's look at what this new America is expected to look like in 2050. We see that the American population is expected to be 46% white, and that the Hispanic population will reach about 30%. Now, let me tell you, the United States already has the third largest Hispanic population in the world. And at the projections we're trending towards 2050, we will have the second largest Hispanic population in the world, second only to Brazil. So let's take a look at the Hispanic population in the U.S. Hispanics will continue to grow and lead the growth in the United States population. And what's very important about noticing this population is that Hispanics are very young. Their average age is about 26 years old. And as they continue to age, they will also continue to become more influential. They will be able to vote in larger numbers. They will be able to own more businesses. They will have completed graduate degrees in college, and there will be a much larger impact in our community and our society. And the Hispanic community is becoming more diverse in the United States as well. It used to be overwhelmingly 3/4 and higher Mexican. And we are seeing now the influence of Central American and South American populations inhabiting in the United States and contributing to the great diversity that we have. So let's look. So let's look at what this increase in growth in Hispanic population has contributed. We said we're going to talk politics. So in the past two election cycles, mind you, in which the overall turnout of all voters, not just Hispanics, has increased dramatically. There have been more women, more voters, more Asians, more young people voting in much higher numbers. Hispanics have still managed to increase their overall share of the vote in both 2004 and in 2008. And what it lets you know is that even in years with unprecedented turnout, Hispanics are still voting in larger numbers than the overall population. And what this means is that Hispanics aren't just registering in higher numbers, they're also voting. And we're seeing the trend continue dramatically over the past several years, and we expect this trend line to continue. And so what will that impact in the future elections coming up? We see that they've played a major impact in several key states, including 4 southwestern battleground states, in determining what the difference was in those outcomes, both in 2004 and in 2008. And we see that, again, their percentages continue to increase. Hispanics also showed one of the largest shifts and increase in partisan preferences over the past election cycle, going from 19% to 36%. This shift is increasingly important because it will impact, again, this word that we talk about, this word called politics, in terms of when we're shaping policy and the issues we're discussing. This partisan preference will play extremely difficult because it's no secret to anyone in this room that there is a party who's dominating Congress, both the House and the Senate and the White House. And this partisan loyalty that Hispanics showed in the previous election cycle, I think, will play a major role in helping shape future policy. So we know Hispanics are becoming influential. And why does this matter, and why does it matter more now, and why not in the past election, and why not last year or the years before? Well, we know it's important because all politics are local. And Hispanics, as do all Americans, as the majority of Americans, they care about comprehensive immigration reform. And when we look at previous polling, we've seen that compared to previous polls and current polls, support for comprehensive immigration reform has stayed around the same. Even in the midst of these economic hardships, Americans want a solution to the comprehensive immigration reform, to this broken immigration system. And when you ask whether Congress should handle the economy or whether it should handle health care and defer and postpone dealing with CIR, voters are saying overwhelmingly by 59 to 39% that they think Congress can handle it this year. And not that they can, but that they should be handling all at the same time. And that just because we are dealing with energy, and just because we're dealing with health care, and just because we're dealing with a variety of other issues, that doesn't mean we cannot also enact comprehensive immigration reform. This country has seen for the past 8 years what inaction can do to our country. We've seen what happens when you have an administration and a Congress that's used to saying no to the measures that Americans want, and Americans now want action. And they're asking this Congress to move on comprehensive immigration reform. So let's go into the particulars of what this poll finds, because people say, well, what does comprehensive immigration reform mean? Well, let's find out what comprehensive immigration reform means. It means securing the border. It means cracking down on employers who hire undocumented immigrants. And it also means requiring undocumented immigrants already here to register for legal status, pay taxes, and learn English to be eligible for U.S. citizenship. I read this because it's important for us to understand what comprehensive immigration reform is and what Americans' understanding of what comprehensive immigration reform is. They understand that we want to provide citizenship to the undocumented here. They understand that we want to secure the border, and they understand that we need to crack down on employers who are taking advantage of undocumented workers. This is an important step in us talking about this issue as we move forward. So, when you tell them what this is, American support for comprehensive immigration reform shoots up to 86%. When they understand and when they hear that, hey, it includes securing the border, it includes cracking down on employers, and it includes providing a pathway to citizenship, 86% of Americans support this. Contrary to many popular beliefs or conventional, I should say unconventional wisdom that is out there, that people will tell you immigration reform is the third rail of politics. To the contrary, Americans support a solution overwhelmingly, 86 to 14%. This is not something that members of Congress, members of the press, members of your community, members of your church, members of your business should be afraid of, because Americans are in line when it comes to this issue. And as we're talking about politics, and we see that immigration matters to Hispanics, we see Hispanics are growing. Hispanics, coincidentally, also happen to live in the states that matter. When we look at the electoral map and we look at what are the traditional states that Democrats always win, and what are the traditional states that Republicans always win, we get the map that you're seeing here before you. Now, if we switch over to just see what the Democrats have historically won, 18 states, 248 electoral votes. They're the states that Democrats have won in the last 5 election cycles. They're, for your most part, your safe Democratic election voting states. And we add with them just 3 states, Nevada, Colorado, New Mexico. Again, heavily Hispanic states, states that the issue of immigration is extremely important. We're seeing these issues play out in. It brings it to 267 electoral votes. Now, I will put the caveat to you, or I would put the disclaimer on that. This is current electoral vote totals. We are in the year 2009. By the year 2012, these votes are going to change. And as you saw earlier that America is becoming more southern and western, so too with the electoral votes. These states in the southwest are going to be gaining seats, and the states out in the northeast are going to be losing congressional seats. So the electoral vote impact will only increase after this next redistricting session. But let's move. We add Florida. So adding 4 states puts you at 294. Now for you political hacks out there like me, you know that the magic number is 270. Once you reach 270, you've won and you've clinched the nomination. So adding just the typical 18 states that Democrats always win and adding 4 states to them, 4 states, mind you, that Obama already won. If he can hold on to these 4 states alone, he secures his reelection. And it's okay if he loses Iowa. It's okay if he loses Ohio. It's okay if he loses Indiana. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want us to lose these states. Let me be very clear about that. I don't want us to lose these states. But if he did, if it so happened that the Midwest had some dramatic shakeup with the economy going on and the automobile industry, that we could lose those states and he could still win re-election. And he's already won these states, so it's just a matter of locking them in. And as we deal with comprehensive immigration reform, we can also put other states into play. We can put states like Arizona back into play now that we will no longer have a senator by the name of John McCain on the ballot. Well, at least we don't think we're going to have him on the ballot. We can put a state like Arizona back in play. We can put a state like Texas back into play. And we can begin to change the map by focusing on what we're calling this Latino belt. This region of the country following from California to Texas, take a little jump, hop, and a skip to get you to Florida. States that have predominant, or I shouldn't say predominant, but heavy Hispanic influence. Heavy Hispanic participation in elections. A state that's witnessing the immigration trend play a major role in their communities, that care about adopting comprehensive immigration reform, and that Obama can win. We are beginning to re-understand why it's important for Obama to consider these states. We don't know that he's going to win these other states again, but we do know that he can win these states again by passing an issue like comprehensive immigration reform, because again, all politics is local, and we know that in these communities, comprehensive immigration reform is a key issue for the voters that will turn out in massive numbers to tilt this election. So thank you very much, and I'm going to turn it over to Simon Rosenberg.